My name is Nick Gray. I'm the founder and CEO at Museum Hack, and I am an outlier.
Welcome to Outlier on Air with Ever Gonzalez, the show where we interview the founders, disruptors, and mavens of the world. Learn how grit, failure, and success are all a part of the entrepreneurial journey.
Hey everybody, welcome to Outlier on Air, the podcast where we interview founders, disruptors, and mavens. As always, I'm your host, Ever Gonzalez. On today's episode, we have Nick Gray. He is the founder and CEO at Museum Hack. Nick, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, we're happy to have you here as well. You are doing something somewhat unique. It's very different to our audience anyway, and I just kind of want to get to know you, the good, the bad, and the ugly of your entrepreneurial journey, and then just kind of any advice that you have for our audience, and kind of digging in deep as to what you love and what you're passionate about. And I think we got the right guy for the job today. So welcome.
Great. I'm happy to be here. Let's rock and roll.
Absolutely. So before we officially get started, tell us where you're calling us from right now.
I'm calling you from New York City. I live in the neighborhood called Greenwich Village, which is between Union Square and Washington Square Park.
And what's the entrepreneurial vibe or the startup scene there in your neck of the woods?
New York City's got a good startup scene. There's a lot of software and e-commerce startups, but then you also have like old school startups, things like bands and restaurants. And so the entrepreneur mindset, I believe, in New York is alive and well.
You know, we here in Southern Utah, smaller community, but we have that as well. And a lot of times I find myself, you know, with my head down, and I'm not really engaged in the community as much as I would like to sometimes, just because work or projects or whatever. Are you in, I don't even know how to say, are you in the scene? Are you out and about meeting other entrepreneurs where you're at?
I'm not in the scene as much as I used to be. I am pretty focused on my business and running that, and I try to hang out with my friends and have a social life. So I don't do as much as those networking activities and things as maybe I did 5 years ago.
That's all right. We're it's funny how we're in different parts, you know, in our story, in our journey, and sometimes, like we mentioned, sometimes our heads are down. That's okay. Let's talk about right off the bat, Museum Hack. I mean, you've been doing this for a little while now. Tell the audience what it is, how you got started.
I've been doing Museum Hack for about 3.5 years now, very seriously as a business. And before that, it was just a hobby. Museum Hack, by the way, is like renegade museum tours. And if you're listening to this podcast and you don't like museums, trust me, I understand. That's why I started this company. I hate museums. I think they're very boring, and I hate how you have to be quiet inside of them, and I just never grew up going to art museums, right? I'm a business guy through and through. But through a journey, I got here and now run, the largest private museum tour company, if not in America, maybe in the world. And we're famous for having these renegade, very fast-paced, not your grandma's museum tour.
We have 355 episodes or so. We interview entrepreneurs all day long. And it's funny because their story is usually like, I just love this or I love that. That's why I started a business doing it. You're the opposite. You hated museums. You could be doing anything in the world. Why this? Why now?
Why this? Why now? You know what? I started doing these museum tours for my friends because I hated museums. I never connected with them. But what happened was this woman brought me on a romantic date at the Metropolitan Museum of Art. And she gave me a tour. She showed me paintings and sculpture and Egyptian artifacts and yada, yada, a bunch of stuff that I never really connected with before. And her walking me around, showing me things that she liked, for me really said, wow, I think I moved to New York to hang out at cool places like this.
Nice.
Right? Like nothing against a dive bar, but that's probably where I was on the average Friday or Saturday night. And here I was at this museum, and I And truth be told, you can drink wine and have beer at the museum too. So
So
for
why
me,
not?
it
Yeah.
became right. Like, so why not? So it became my default place that I like to hang out at.
Okay, so tell us about that actual experience. So was it her passion, her storytelling, the details
Mm.
that she had about the pieces? What was it that really captured you?
You know what it was? I think it was just being at the museum at night when there was nobody there, right? Because the Met is open late on Friday and Saturday nights. Probably your museum, if you're listening to this, your local museum has 1 or 2 nights a week that it does stay open late, or they'll have special events. And I love going at that time because there's so fewer people during that. And I just feel I don't know. Maybe it's something weird about me that I like these spaces when nobody else is in them.
And so you had that little tour that first night. From
Mm.
that night until you kind of said you did it for as a hobby for a little bit, but from that night until you officially went all in with Museum Hack, what was that process like, and how long did that take?
Yeah. So, first step after that nice date was just the next weekend. I said, you know what? Like, I'm going to go back by myself and I'm going to walk around the museum, have a glass of wine or 2 or 3 and do the museum audio tour and look things up on YouTube. And then I did it again the following weekend, and I started going there every single weekend. And I'd read things online. And then my little sister came to town to New York, and I gave her a tour showing her just cool stuff around the museum. And I liked that so much that I said, all right, for my birthday, I'm going to give a tour to my friends because it's my birthday, right? I can do whatever I
That's
want.
right.
And so that's what I did. I said I'd give a tour on my birthday, and I showed them, it was not a high level tour of sophisticated art history. The tour was basically 10 cool things I found and like 3 things I want to steal.
And what was the response from your friends? Did they just kind of indulge in, yeah, it's awesome, it's great, or did they really enjoy it?
I think they really enjoyed it because I talked to them in real talk. I'd tell them, you know what, this thing is awesome because the museum paid $95 million for it.
Nice.
And let's talk about why they paid that much money. And so I would talk to them in real terms, like how I wanted someone to talk to me about the art. And yeah.
It's funny. I happen to enjoy, a few museums. I guess it depends on which one it is and what it is. But
Mm.
they all seem a little stuffy sometimes. And doing research on you, preparing for this episode, obviously we noticed that you're almost anything but stuffy, and I don't know if this is going to be offensive, but completely proper. I mean, you're having a good time. Sometimes you're loud, you're very funny, just you're out there and you're passionate. How does that work with, especially New York City, right, where you're almost in
Right.
the hub there in the U.S. for awesome museums? How did that translate to other people being interested in what you're doing, the way you're doing it?
So that's the first one first. What's our style? Our style is very, fast-paced, irreverent but respectful. We like to tell the juicy stories behind the art. And I say that our tours, by the way, come down to those 3 main things that make us different than all other museum tours, and that's guides, games, and gossip.
Nice.
So those 3 things make us special and unique. How are the tours perceived? Like, well, I can tell you by the security guards at the beginning had no idea what we were doing. I mean, bless their hearts, they see this guy running around the museum with a bunch of well-dressed millennials, and they think I'm some sort of very passionate, confused person.
And so I guess I'm trying to figure out how the business side of it works, right? Are the museums hiring you to give tours, or are you able to give a tour for your own group and your own company in these different museums? Do you need permission? How does that work?
Good question. Short answer is no, we don't need permission. Longer answer is that we register and work through most museums as like a third-party provider. So we're like an outside tour group that registers and follows the rules, and yet all of our content and all of our staff, they work for Museum Hack, not for the museum.
What was that
And so,
like? What was that like setting up those relationships with the museums? Was it fairly easy, or was it, some negotiating needed to be done?
well, I can tell you this, and for you new entrepreneurs out there and you seasoned ones know this, if I had to ask for permission to do Museum Hack, I never would be here now,
I
right?
love it.
I'm very lucky that and thankful that now the museum is supportive of what we're doing. And but I think during the early days, this was never intended or supported by them. And yeah, I think during the early days there was some conflict.
So with everything we do as entrepreneurs, right? We have to have a good idea, something that's going to generate revenue, all those good things, right? A good business plan, but it also comes
Mm,
down to marketing, right? I mean, I don't
mm,
care if you have the
mm.
best widget with the best service, you need to market your services. How do you go about doing that in a city like New York City where there's a lot of noise, a lot of things going on, and
Yeah.
older, more established museums and tour companies kind of doing the same thing, or not the same thing, but similar, right? You have a little bit of a different twist. How did you get the word out about what you're doing?
I'm so glad you asked about that because marketing was really important for us. And I had the luxury of when I started my company, I had a full-time job.
Mhm.
And I was selling aircraft electronic equipment used in planes. You know that map that shows you where the plane is flying
Uh-huh.
across the world? That's what my company made, but for small jets. And I did that during the week. I worked full out. I was very good at my job. But this museum thing became like my weekend obsession. It was like a full-time hobby. And I did these tours as a hobby for free and for fun for like, 1 or 2 years before really quitting and starting that as my business. And that 1 or 2 years allowed me to get so good at my craft and get so much buzz that that's what helped.
Are there different levels? Are there different packages? I mean, can an individual hire you or your team to get a tour? Can my company hire you to give a tour to my group? How does that
Hmm.
work?
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. I'll explain. So now, today, Museum Hack is a much larger business than just me. We've hired dozens of tour guides. We're in several major cities, and we have a lot of different offerings. Our most basic and awesome and famous and popular one is our general unhighlights tour. And we do this in Washington, D.C., and New York City, and Chicago, and San Francisco, and soon more cities, where we'll show you just like the coolest stuff at the museum with one of our award winning guides. And you can just buy that as a ticket off of our website. And then sometimes we have special tours, we have VIP nighttime tours. Um, so we did a special tour actually that has really caught on that was originally called, like famous women in history, but now it's been rebranded and is just taken off like a whip, and it's called Badass Bitches at the Met.
Nice.
So that's pretty cool. What can
So,
I
so,
say?
so you have different packages, different services. I'm assuming that you're tweaking and adjusting it as you go along. But you did mention several other cities. Where are you officially? How many different cities?
Officially, we're in 4 cities. The bulk of our business continues to be in New York,
Mhm.
but we're in New York and Chicago, San Francisco, and Washington, D.C.
What's your next stop? Do you have a location in mind already?
To be determined.
Okay.
We're keeping our cards close to our chest on that, but suffice to say, probably on the East Coast.
With now, right? How big is your team now?
Team now, I think we have about 40 employees.
So I mean, that's a legit company, right? I mean, you're running a real business here. Do you
It
spend
is.
do you spend most of your time running the company, or can you still go out there and do tours yourself?
I spend all my time running the company
Really?
today. I probably should do tours, but the reality of it is that our staff is way better at giving tours than I ever was. So I joke that like I probably wouldn't be hired at my own company now.
Nice.
Um, just because they're good. I mean, they're Broadway actors, they're science teachers, they're stand-up comedians. They're a really good group of people.
Do you miss it? Do you miss not giving the tours?
I do. I do miss not giving tours. I got to take a bunch of friends to the Met this past weekend, and it really brought back the old memories. I like that.
So as having a company, 30, 40 employees in several different cities, doing some cool. What has been the hardest part up until this point in your entrepreneurial journey as you're trying to build this company?
You know what? I would say the hardest part has been building the team with the right people, because today they're the reason that this company is a success, whether it's our marketing team or our sales team, our tour guides in DC, Chicago, San Francisco. Just hiring the right people for us has been something that has been very, very challenging.
And for you personally, running this entire operation, what do you struggle with?
What do I struggle with? I believe I'm very impatient, and I tend to overmanage occasionally or want things to happen much faster than can be realistic. So for me, that's a big struggle. That's something that I get frustrated with. I love the idea of museum hacks, right? Anybody, it seems like you can get anybody in there and you can kind of show them a good time. Have there been groups or, I guess I wouldn't even ask it this way. What's the toughest part of getting somebody engaged as you're giving a tour? I mean, have there been some where you're like, right,
these guys are a tough nut to crack or whatever. What's the hardest part of it?
You know what? I used to joke when I was starting the tours for free. I said, look, I want to do this so good for free that eventually I can do private tours for the Saudi royal family.
Nice.
And I can do like one tour a weekend and just forget. Well, the funny thing is, I actually did a tour for some people from the Saudi royal family, and it was a really hard crowd. It was a much more reserved and serious attitude than I was used to, with, younger New Yorkers, rebellious, a little tipsy. And I tell you what, that was a very, very hard tour that when I was done, it just had that feeling like, ugh, that did not go well.
Yeah, that's funny. Are you getting more tourists or more locals that run through your tours?
Hard to say. I think it's about half and half. We get a good mix of locals who find out about us as that cool thing, and then we get a lot of tourists who see us on TripAdvisor or Yelp or Facebook.
I'm curious to see, you're obviously expanding, but what this is going to look like in 3 years, 5 years. I mean, are you looking to go international and do different things like that, or are you pretty happy with what you're doing now? You just want to continue to do it better?
You know what? We think that museums are really these awesome spaces that are like underutilized, and just frankly, more people should be going to more museums more often. It's like in today's day and age, I am digitally saturated, right? Yeah. Whether it's Snapchat or Instagram or Facebook. I mean, I waste so much time on my cell phone. I do it more than anybody else, trust me. And for me, museums represent that physical space where you can go and connect with art and history, that real life, like Wikipedia almost. So what does the future hold? I'm not sure, but I think more people going to more museums more often is something that we're very obsessed with.
You mentioned earlier that you actually didn't even like museums. What's that feeling like now? Is it part of what you're doing now, or have you found a bit of a passion for museums in general?
My bio on Twitter says I love good museums and I hate the bad ones.
Nice. So what are some of your favorite ones then, right now?
Right now, there's a museum here in New York called the Whitney that's on the High Line, and they moved a couple years ago to a new building. I've had some good experiences there recently. It's within walking distance of my apartment. So I've been spending a surprising amount of time there. I enjoy I still love the Met, right?
Yeah.
For somebody that's coming to New York for a first time or a visitor who only comes to New York every couple of years, I gotta say, the Met is still my favorite museum in the whole freaking world.
Why?
It's huge. It's over 2 million square feet. There's hundreds of thousands of objects. It really has something for everyone. If you don't like painting, fine, they have mummies. If you don't like mummies, fine, they have this awesome furniture collection, right? You don't like furniture? Great, go to musical instruments or the arms and armor. There's so many cool things.
Well, with that being said, even just with that museum alone, I mean, and I'm assuming you have obviously a bunch of other ones. Research-wise, how does that work? Do you as a company put it out to your tour guides, or do you let them kind of explore themselves and come up with a script or highlights that they're going to give on their own tours?
All of our tour guides write their own tours.
They do.
And we think that that's so important because, they do, because they need to talk passionately, right? Like they need to be real with people about things that they know about and that they're excited. So if I give a guide a script and say, all right, go talk about this Van Gogh self-portrait, they don't care, right? They're just going to do it and it's going to feel like work. And so because of that reason, we let the guides come up with all their own research. We have a huge research library that we've custom built. It like runs a hacked version of WordPress as an internal kind of wiki thing. And that for us is very helpful for the guides to build their tours, build their pieces, and research.
Is this your first entrepreneurial venture? I mean, I know you were working selling some of the software technology for on planes. Is this your first real startup?
I would say that I'm a born and bred red-blooded capitalist entrepreneur. Started a business in high school that helped me pay for college and helped me win a scholarship. I had a web hosting company way back in 1997. I was doing web design before that. Tried to start a software company in college that didn't work out, but I sure learned a lot. And then for a long time worked with this aircraft electronics equipment. It was a family business and helped my dad and my mom grow it from the basement of our house to much bigger.
So it's in your blood. I mean, this is what you love doing.
I love business.
What has been the single most thing that sets you apart from all the entrepreneurs? What would you attribute your success to, if you had to pinpoint it?
What would I attribute my success to? I like this question. I don't have a good answer, but I'll take a stab at one.
Okay.
I'd say that the industries, one is luck. In high school, I got lucky, and I happened that my website was like the #1 search term for cheap web hosting on Yahoo.
Nice.
And for a period of a couple months, I just was getting so many new web hosting accounts. But number 2, I'd say that I tend to go and work best in industries that are not saturated with other entrepreneurs. I mean, think about it. Museum tours, there's not a lot of innovation and commercialization happening in that space.
Are there competitors?
There are competitors
trying to do it,
yeah.
Hip and cool and like you guys are?
Yeah, there are. There's a lot of people who work at museums that are doing really cool, hip, free museum tours. Okay. And so that's certainly a competitor. But in general, we see that, we really compete with people's attention.
Yeah.
And if someone chooses to stay home and watch Netflix or Westworld or Black Mirror or whatever the new hip shows
all great
are,
shows, by the way, right? So you are competing
all
with
good shows, right? Right? Like, that's really our competition. So we need to have an entertainment product first, and then education comes with that.
Is there an average time that that your tour guides are with the giving their tours, or is it just depending on per different request?
Most of our tours are 2 hours long. And if you're listening to that and you're like, oh my God, 2 hours at a museum, gag me, that sounds terrible. I'll say that our tours are incredibly fast-paced, and the guides bring in games and shots of espresso and wine and candy and all this other stuff to really move the tours fast to keep people's attention locked in.
I love it. I'm next time I'm in New York, I'm definitely gonna have to look you guys up and give you a call and get a tour.
Dude, you gotta come. We'll make you VIP.
Well, I would love it. This sounds, I've lived in New York for a couple of years, and it was amazing. I loved the museums out there, but no doubt that I'm sure that you have way more information that would make it a whole lot better. But for those the audience that's listening to this, they're hearing your story, what you've done, right, what you're working on now. What kind of advice would you have for them? Right, you're at a place where you're employing 30, 40 people. You're doing what you love. You're having some success. What kind of advice would you have for our audience?
Audience for a new entrepreneur, I would say that cash is king. I would say start doing your thing as a side hustle. Do it on the weekends. Do it at night. Slowly begin charging for it, and just don't wait. Right now, if you think you're gonna work on it till it's perfect and then release it to the world, think I never would have got here by doing that, right? I was constantly evolving my tours every weekend. Man, if you're not embarrassed about the first product that you release, then you are definitely doing it wrong.
I love it. That's great advice. I mean, because of the position we're in with the conferences and events that we have, and the podcast where we interview a lot of entrepreneurs, you're right. If you wait till it's perfect, you might miss your opportunity. Go out there and do it. I love that advice.
Massive respect, by the way, for putting on this conference. Have you locked down the dates for next year yet?
It'll be in September. No, we haven't chosen dates, but it'll be late September for Founders Weekend. So we might have to get you out here, out to Utah to present to our entrepreneurs out here. It'd be awesome.
That would be so cool. That would be so cool.
The last question, last official question anyway. When all of this is said and done, right, at the end of all this, how do you want to be remembered?
I hope I get more people to unlock the mystery of museums. I never enjoyed them. I thought that they weren't for me. And today I can go to them and be kind of inspired by history or by art. And if I'm able to do that for just a couple people, then I'll chalk it up as a success.
I love it. Congratulations. Well, you're certainly well on your way. Now, where can we find you online?
All right. The name of my company is called Museum Hack. We have a hilarious Instagram account. If you are on Instagram, please follow us. We're at Museum Hack, singular, not plural. And then for myself, I love to make these goofy, crazy Facebook videos. Can you attest? They're like kind of fun.
Absolutely. It's funny. We do a little bit of research for all of our guests, and we read a few articles and we see some of their videos if they have videos. I kept watching video after video after video. You're having a good time. I'm like, why am I sitting here? I need to be hanging out with this guy a little bit more.
I love that. And so I try to share those on my Facebook page. That's facebook.com/Nick Gray News, NEWS. And that's about it. Oh, so if you're listening to this and you're on Twitter, send me a tweet. I promise to write you back. I'm at Nick Gray News. And I think it'd be really cool to hear from some listeners and just a really awesome community here of outliers and folks listening.
Absolutely. I love it. So Outliers, you can go to outliermagazine.co. That's outliermagazine.co. First of all, subscribe to the podcast, rate, review it. But there you're going to find Nick's website, social media accounts. Feel free to reach out to him. He has a great story. He has a great company. Say hello on the website, on social media. He's obviously a great guy that is doing some pretty fun stuff. So Nick, we really appreciate you taking the time to talk to us, for your words of wisdom, for your advice. All that good stuff. It's been a great episode. We really appreciate it.
Thank you very much for having me. It's an honor. And thanks for listening.
Great. Thank you. So, Outliers, we'll talk to you tomorrow.